Today I'm going to be showing you San Quentin, my 10-foot long American cichlid tank over there that's loaded full of really beautiful and pretty crazy fish. And more importantly, I'm going to be showing you my 3 favorite fish in that tank, which are gorgeous and have a lot of personality, especially my number 1 spot, which is constantly blowing my mind. And I'm also going to show you some things that I do with that fish that you should never do with your own. My number 3 pick is a cichlid that, from what I can gather from comments, is a lot of viewers' favorite fish. And he might even be your favorite fish. When I added him as a small guy, he had a lot of power in this tank. He was pretty ruthless with it too. But he's kind of changed his role over the last few months. Because of his colors and the pattern all over his body, he's probably the most beautiful fish in the tank. And you know him as Kevin. That's him in the back there, doing what he's always doing, working in the pit. Since he's hooked up with his lovely lady Sylvia the Salvini, that's her right there in the yellow, he feels the pressure to provide a good home for their fry, which means a pit beneath the stones that reaches all the way to the glass bottom of their humongous prison tank. He might actually be shooting blanks, because he's been at it for quite some time with no babies yet. Isn't he stunning though? I love the beautiful shades of blue with that rippling water or marbled pattern all over his body, with those dark blue stripes on the posterior end. Absolutely gorgeous. Of course, Sylvia's got it going on too. Both are really pretty fish, and they'll have some pretty good looking kids if they ever figure this out. This is Kevin when he was a little boy. Isn't he cute? He used to line up all his toys in the middle of the tank and then absolutely rip into anyone who tried to play with them. I'm just kidding, but that's actually something I did as a little boy. Not proud of it, and I'm not joking either. But Kevin was on the more violent side back then, and a lot of viewers thought it was only going to get worse, and he'd be too much for this somewhat docile crowd that he's incarcerated with. But strangely enough, being tied down to Sylvia and having his job at the salt mine has really leveled him out. A little squabble here with another inmate, no casualties, and now he's back at it, working deep down in the hole. He likes to just gently defend this corner of the yard, and that's about it now. Just chasing guys off the lawn, and then he gets back to it. And he's a hard worker. Sylvia loves a hard worker. It's so sexy. Just look at that little vixen letting Kevin know that the store's open if he'd like to do some shopping. Aren't they just a great couple? If they were people, they'd both have black eyes and missing teeth, have a lot of tattoos, and a 6-pack of beer always at the ready. Their kids would be running around naked with no clothes on. I realize some people are going to want to put Kevin at the number 1 spot, and I can definitely see why you want to do that. But just wait till you see my number 1 spot. He's definitely there for a reason. A lot of reasons, actually. We still have a minute before we get there, though, so sit back and enjoy the ride. The next guy holding on to the number 2 spot is a fish that used to be my number 1 for a long time until my current number 1 took over, and you'll see why when I show you my number 1 spot. But this guy, he has a very unique look to him and a very slow and peaceful demeanor about him, but he also holds a lot of power in the tank. In fact, right now he's the tank boss. This is my amazing American cichlid named Buck. Buck actually used to be my number 1 American cichlid for quite a while. He didn't do anything to lose the spot. The new number 1 is just so cool that he didn't stand a chance. Buck is still really awesome though, in just about every way. The Cichlid Bros had one of these a few years ago. He didn't last very long in their 180, but I remember thinking, I gotta have one of those. I didn't know much about their personality at the time, but the way theirs looked was so unique. They look a lot like raptors from Jurassic Park, and I think the Cichlid Bros actually named theirs Blue after one of the raptors from Jurassic World. They really do look a lot like a dinosaur fish. There's a line extending from the corners of their mouths, extending down toward their pectoral fins, that makes them look like their mouths are even bigger than they already are, which is already pretty big. Buck has a beautiful aqua color, and the huge deep orange eyes are the first thing you see when you look at this tank. Hypnotizing. I've seen these fish a little more on the contrasty side, with a deeper blue and a darker line coming down from their mouths. Buck seems really comfortable in this tank, and he is the tank boss, so I'm not sure why he isn't even more colorful, but he's still lovely. And he's really healthy. In fact, everybody in this tank is. Even though he's the tank boss right now, he's still a gentle giant. Never abuses his power. He moves very slowly, like the monsters from a Godzilla movie. Sometimes he'll decide it's time to go after someone and teach him a lesson for no reason at all, except they made eye contact with him. He slowly heads their way. And once he gets close enough, he very slowly opens his mouth and takes a bite at him. He doesn't actually bite them, he bites at them, slow-mo style. Here someone else is taking a bite at him, which also happens sometimes. After the skirmish, it's back to cruising the tank at impulse power for Buck. Star Trek nerds will know what I'm talking about with that impulse power stuff, and don't pretend like you don't watch Star Trek. If you're nerdy enough to be watching these fish videos all day, then you're definitely nerdy enough to be watching yourself some Star Trek too. Buck doesn't watch very much Star Trek because he can't, he's a fish, but he's still cool enough to claim the number 2 spot, just ahead of Kevin. I am so excited about my number 1 spot. He's a fish that is constantly finding new ways to blow my mind. And if you've had one in the past or you have one now, you're probably wondering why I'm freaking out all of a sudden about how great these fish are, because everybody knows. But I never had one before, so I hadn't experienced it. But I'm here to tell you that even if you have a great one, mine's cooler than yours. And I'm going to show you some things that I do with this fish that you should never do with your own. And I almost didn't want to tell you because I know I'm going to get some hate comments and I'm going to get people unsubscribing from the channel. And after much thought and deliberation, I came to the conclusion, f*** y'all. I'm going to do it anyway. Meet Percy, my wild Columbian Oscar. Percy isn't a fish. I mean, he's a fish, but he isn't a fish. Are you an Oscar fan? If you are, then you know exactly what I mean. They're more than a fish. More than a cool cichlid, too. Lots of cichlids have great personalities and don't act like dumb fish. But Oscars take this to a whole nother level, man. I can't even really explain it well. He's always right in front of me when I'm standing at the tank, looking at me in the eye. And that's pretty awesome, but I can actually feel this connection, like we're reading each other's minds. Probably because we're of about the same intelligence, I'm guessing. I think part of it is those bulging eyes, like he's wearing goggles. And I can see those eyes moving to follow me, trained on my every move. I'm going to tell you something right now. He knows when I'm filming, and he doesn't appreciate it much. I can even put the camera way back in the room, and it doesn't matter. So it's really difficult to get shots of him doing things that make Percy so special. If I'm standing at the opposite end of the tank from him, you can really see that eye turn and focus, and then he starts casually swimming my way until he gets all up in my face. Feeding him has become especially fun. I laugh at almost every feeding, and also get extremely wet. Check him out, he does this every single night. Isn't that freaking amazing? He's like an automatic feeder for all the other inmates of the tank too. They don't eat until Percy says they eat. But I wouldn't necessarily say that you should do this with your fish. This isn't the one that's going to get me all the hate mail, but I know that some people would say that I'm teaching him to jump up. And he could very well jump up when I'm not feeding him and get a concussion when he hits the glass lid, or break the lid. He could jump up more than expected also and jump out of the tank when I'm feeding him and plummet to the floor about 5 feet below. So I'm careful, and so far he doesn't seem confused and he doesn't jump up much when there isn't a spoon floating above the water. But he does jump up a little bit sometimes if there's food stuck to the glass. Okay, here's the one that's going to get everyone all suited up and ready to string me by my toes. I do something that they say you should never do with your fish. Ever. You see, fish have something called a slime coat all over their bodies. It acts like a protective barrier against physical damage and disease. If this slime coat becomes compromised, then they can get sick more easily. Touching it can remove that layer, which increases the risk of bad things happening to your fish. So don't touch them. But I'm going to touch Percy. I know I shouldn't, but it's just way too much fun, and it's a bonding experience for Percy and me. We bond when we touch. Again, hard to get on video. It looks like he doesn't want me to touch him, but when there's no camera, he's all about it. He comes right up to the top and lets me pet his sides, his fins, and rub his forehead. It's so cool. I know, slime coat. But here's the thing. Fish are always brushing up against things in nature and in your tank. You ever see flashing in your tank? That's when they quickly dart against a substrate to rub against it when they have an itch or they're stressed. Or sometimes they're just brushing up against rocks or plants in the tank. And sometimes, if you're fishing and there's catch and release, you have to touch the fish in order to throw them back in the lake. And what would be the point of doing that if they're just going to die because their slime coat's compromised? So come on, give me a break with this one. I'm barely touching Percy and he likes it. If you do touch your fish though, make sure that your hands are wet before you do. Never touch a fish with dry hands, or that definitely will damage their slime coat. So what do you think of my top 3? You love them? Hate them? Would you switch it around or add some other fish? Let me know in the comments. If you want to know more about Kevin and Sylvia's love affair, then check out this video right here. Until next time, that's going to be a wrap.